Greetings, Samurai. We are back for another episode of the Ludomancer's Vault discussing AEG's Legend of the Five Rings Clan War miniatures game, the Daimyo edition, from way back in 2001. And in fact, the game originally dropped in 1998, so it comes from a prior century. And what I wanted to do today was get to grips with a faction review. We've done a lot of the basics and covered the basic rules, gone in depth on some of the rules, and even had a few battle reports. Hopefully we'll have a few more of those coming up. I'm going to go ahead and adjust some figures which are not straight here now. And then I wanted to explain a bit about the different factions. I'm going to try to keep this to about 30 minutes because I know not everybody has a long attention span anymore. So let's get right into it. I've got some miniatures from my collection here. Most of my dragon collection is here. And what I'm going to do is tell you a little bit about who the dragon are. They are a mysterious clan, not too great in numbers, that live in the mountain areas of, or one of the mountain areas of Rokugan. And there are a lot of Rokugan lore videos out there on YouTube. There's not so much about Clan War the video game, so I'm not going to get too deep into their lore, but to tell you that they have kind of a mystical approach. They have a lot of philosophical martial arts schools. Their leader is a mysterious character known as Togashi Yokuni. No spoilers, he's actually a dragon in human form. In fact, this is his son right here, who happens to be half dragon. So, you know, kind of a dead giveaway, and it's also 20-something years out. So, again, no spoilers, but they are led by a literal dragon, and a lot of what they do is imbued by their mystical philosophies and magical powers. So, not belaboring their background, I do recommend you go out there and check out other lore videos for more about the Dragon Clan. Why did I choose them as the first army to do for an army review? Well, because I think they are good at just about everything, and they are not the best at anything, so in a way they make an excellent baseline to talk about the different armies in the game. Why would you play the dragon? If you like the idea of mystical mountain warrior monks who are generally the good guys when it comes to the settings morality, but have some of their own mysterious secret agendas, have some interesting gadgets and special units that are available only to them. And if you like two-sword weapon fighting, then they're going to be for you too, because they're the most, I guess, established practitioner of the Nito-ryu school of fighting, or Niten Ichi-ryu, the use of two swords. So several of their units have guys who have two swords. Both the leaders have two swords, and that actually has a game effect we'll talk about in a minute. So let's talk about the dragon's personalities. Their standard leadership packages give you your basic battle and leadership and also defense bonuses. The Chewy gives you as well the ability to step in for another character in a duel. I don't know how often that's going to be really useful for you, but if you are somehow in a dueling meta or playing against a crane player a lot, you might want to consider upgrading to the Chewy. I typically take the Gunsos because Battle 2, Leadership 2, Defense 2 is pretty useful. The Dragon have a wide variety of characters. As I've said, and I'll say before, they're good at just about everything, but not the best at anything. Their two big heavy hitters are going to be Togashi Yokuni, who's the daimyo, and Togashi Hoshi, who is actually on a monster base. Both of those are very expensive. Yokuni's 475 points, Togashi Hoshi's 440, so if a 2,000 point army, they're going to be about a quarter of your list. Yokuni is good at everything. He's a spellcaster. He fights well. He can use spells and not become spent, but instead destroy the spell scroll. He can get tattoos for his unit. And then strangely enough, he can turn into the Earth Dragon, which is kind of cool. But I'm not sure when it would be really useful, because when he comes in to play, he comes in with all the same number of wounds as Yokuni does, and you know, it doesn't seem to I don't know, it doesn't seem to help him out. Maybe it makes him a bit stronger in close combat, but it's a fun little option. Togashi Hoshi is pretty dangerous because he can fly and has cavalry movement, and he also causes fear. So he can be very dangerous. He rolls 2 damage dice for each hit in close combat, and he has 4 strikes. Also, people shooting at him have a -1 penalty, so very strong. A couple times that I've used him, he's been very effective and powerful and versatile. So, but it's a big commitment to points, and I'm sure one of these days he's just going to get shot off the table. Some of the major characters that you can play on the battlefield are Mirumoto Hitomi. She is on the table here. Here she is. Here's her figure, Mirumoto Hitomi. And Mirumoto Hitomi is a good leader. When she expends Void to generate a Void effect, each point expended counts as 2. And she starts, which is 5 Void in her Void ring. So she's pretty good leader. She does have the charge ability, which a lot of leaders don't have, or I should say there's just not a lot of charge natively in your units or your leaders. So she's pretty useful. I'm going to talk about Mirumoto Sakune. He is a special character who is a liaison to the unicorn, and he allows you to bring a unit of horse archers from the unicorn list at no additional cost. He's pretty useful to add a different kind of threat to your army, and because of him, your unit will always round up their damage to the nearest multiple of 10. So that can be pretty effective to at least cause a single wound or to add extra wounds. They do have a good range of Shugenja. Agasha Tamori is their most powerful one, and they are some of them are combat like Tamori, so they can be put into a unit, but they tend to be good spellcasters, probably not the best, with the exception of Yokuni himself, who has that special ability. You have a whole bunch of different leaders. Mirumoto Daini, he has a discount. He can lead Naga units, which is pretty cool. And then you have your monk leaders. So you have Togashi Mitsu, who's probably the most famous of the monk leaders. He can add some options to your monk units that you might not normally have. He has a crab tattoo that makes them harder to hit, and he also has a dragon tattoo that allows him to roll straight damage dice, but it spends him, which is a pretty tough cost to pay for that. So, I'm not going to go through every character, but in general, they have some decent leaders, they have some decent Shugenja, they have some pretty good duelists. There's another monk hero called Togashi Bujin, who is pretty useful. He can also give you some tattoos that you might not otherwise get access to. And that's probably about all I have to say about their heroes. They're, in general, kind of middle of the road. Some of them have overlap with Toturi army units for historical reasons. Mirumoto Taki, he reduces the cost of a item, so you can give him a weapon more cheaply. And yeah, that's about it. They're pretty much decent at everything, and have a tool in the toolbox to deal with just about any situation. But none of their characters, maybe with the exception of Hoshi, are just monsters when he's a literal monster. So turning to their units, in general, you're going to see that a lot of the units have a daisho, and so their target number is going to be split. So for example, the Dragon Medium Elite have a 7-6. In close combat, it's a 7. In ranged, it's a 6. So they're harder to hit. You need 7s or better to hit them in close combat. And this is kind of a funny rule because, for example, for the Dragon Medium Elite, for example, These guys have naginata. So the figure itself is not really wielding two swords. In fact, the model only has one, like a tachi style sword. But for, you know, mystical, magical mountain dwelling reasons, they get that +1 to their defense. So what kind of units do they have? You've got your Fire Blossoms, which are basically like little grenadier units. They allow you to take trap cards, so you could do an army where you took 3 units of those guys. You had 3 trap cards in your army, in your deck, and then you could boost the damage of those trap cards. That's a lot of eggs to put in one basket, and 3 units of them at 10 apiece is going to cost you around 420 points, I think. So it's a build. I don't know how effective it would be. I like to take a unit or 2 of them just to have that utility of some short range firepower, and because they're thematic with their little orange grenades. I painted them orange anyway. The Dragon Flame are their standard archers. I'm using the heavy archers from the original box back there. The actual Dragon Flame models are pretty hard to find. I did get some, but I haven't painted them up yet. So maybe you'll see them one of these days. The Dragon Medium Elite are kind of your warrior monks with naginata, and they're pretty good, and they hit at a +1 to hit and +2 damage. And again, none of these guys so far, the Fire Blossoms have the special rules of throwing bombs. The Dragon Storm are a dedicated cavalry unit. I haven't tried them out yet. They don't look too hot on paper. I do use their heavy hitters quite a bit, and they do have some pretty strong heavy hitters. The Dragon's Talons are ATN 8 in close combat, +1/+1 with 2 wounds each. And when they enter an engagement as an attacker, they become enraged, which is, I think, pretty much like Frenzy. They get +2 attack, +2 damage, -1 to their hit, meaning they get cancels out their dice show, I guess. But they ignore all morale tests. They become spent at the end of the combat, but they can hit very hard, and they have durability with those stats. The Dragon Scales are kind of a cheaper option. They have a +1/+2. Also with ATN 8, so they're pretty tough, but they're only 1 wound each at 16 points. No special rules for them. These are the House Guard models. I actually use those as Dragon Scales a lot, because like most of the House Guard units in the game, the House Guard is not great for the amount of points that you spend on them. So I tend to use these guys as Dragon Scales. You can't really find the Dragon Scales models themselves from back in the day. The Isezumi are the tattooed men. These are your classic monks, and they are utility units. You can give them a whole bunch of different tattoos, and the tattoos can do different things. So you can give them a centipede tattoo so they can move in the cavalry movement. You can give them a dragon tattoo so they can breathe fire, etc., etc. They have some different. You can give them a lion tattoo so they have the charge ability. So they can kind of be whatever you want them to be. And at base, they have 2 wounds each, so they're durable, but they are hit on 6 or above, and they're a +1/+1. Morale level 5, so they're going to ignore morale checks from other units around them getting in trouble. By the way, these are the Dragon's Talons, by the way. I didn't point them out when I was talking about them. They got very heavy armor. The model originally came with a very big kind of headpiece to go on the helmet, and I just wasn't really a fan, so I think they look pretty cool without it. And if I want to use them as a normal real-world samurai with 2-handed swords, that could work too. There's these guys called Kazeido Adepts I've never used, which are basically hand-to-hand guys, like karate masters, and they are unarmed. They have no equipment, +0/+0, but they get fast strike in each close combat phase of an engagement. So that's something you can play with. Fast strike in each phase means they hit first. If you're able to do something to buff them with a character, or maybe a frenzy card, they could be an interesting surprise. So there's some other specialty units like the Kitsuki Magistrates. These guys are supposed to be good against Kolat and Ninja. So again, not going to come up too much. I'm not sure anybody has an offensive Kolat ability in the whole game. The Scorpion have ninja effects, so they might be able to shield your characters from ninja effects. Miyamoto Forward Regulars are just basically a light infantry unit, pretty cheap, but +0/+0. They will not rout if they're led by a leader of Glory 4 or higher, so at least they're going to stay around. They're not going to run off the board. The Miyamoto House Guard, so 20, let's see, 23 points, and they are 8-7 in defense, 2 wounds each, +1/+1. Morale level is only 6, so they will take morale checks for spreading panic. They have to be led by a high glory 6 or higher. They won't rout, and the personality you put in their unit can't be targeted with a duel. So again, not sure how often that'll be useful to you, but if your regular opponent is a Crane player who likes to duel your personalities off the table, you could take a Miyamoto House Guard, put your juicy character in there, and they would be protected. The medium infantry is basically your spear unit, like most armies have, but they're a defense 7, which is nice, +1 to hit, no plus to damage, fast strike during the first turn, first phase of close combat. One thing you see in the game is a little confusing is they say ability fast strike during close combat, but if you read the definition of fast strike, that's only the first round, which is why other units like the Kazedo Adepts say fast strike during each close combat phase specifically, because the regular fast strike doesn't give you that. The Miyamoto Scouts are, they're not even skirmishers, which is kind of strange, but they are dudes who ignore penalty for woods brush, and I guess they can move through terrain easily, but other than that, kind of bog standard. Mountaineers, these guys actually have bows. They're a +1 to hit, no plus to damage, and they can skirmish, which means they're harder to hit themselves, and they also ignore any movement penalties for hills. So that's kind of an interesting option for a skirmishing unit of archers if you want. The Dragon Flame are a +1/+1, so you do get a bonus to your damage. And they have longer ranged bows. They have like the long bow, I guess you could say, as opposed to the smaller bow of the Mountaineers. The Tattooed Madmen and the Tattooed Warriors are kind of other flavors of your Isezumi. They're only 1 wound, +1/+1 for the Madmen, and these guys have to have at least 3 tattoos, and they can use as many tattoos as they want in a single turn. So they can activate any number of their attached tattoos all at once. So they can kind of like, and they get a +2 to their morale level until the end of the battle, which makes their morale test more difficult. So actually they'll break more easily, but they start at morale 3. So yeah, if you want like a kind of a one-shot missile of tattooed monks, send them in there, have them go crazy with all of their tattoos and see how it goes, and if you're lucky they won't rout off the field. You've got the Tattooed Warriors, who are the same cost, and I think it's fair to say they can only have 2 tattoos, so they're just basically a cheaper Isezumi with 1 wound each. So if you thought those were too expensive for some reason, you might take the Tattooed Warriors. So that's it, really, for the Dragon army lists, what's available in the book. They have a little bit of everything, like I said. Let's talk for a second maybe about some items. So the Dragon have a decent starting honor, but it's not the highest, and so you're probably almost always, and this is true with most armies, going to want to take the Fan of Command for a +1 tactician, so you can draw an additional card. Miyamoto Sukune has good shooting abilities, and he rounds up his unit's damage to the next highest multiple of 10. So if you give him a shooting weapon like a magical bow, there's one that gives you +1 shooting attack, that could make them very deadly. I think I forgot to talk about those guys. Maybe I skipped a page. Maybe I did. Oh, you know what? I didn't skip a page. What I should have said then was, because of Miyamoto Sukune's special rule, he can lead Shinjo horsebowmen, recruiting them to his unit at their standard cost. So they come in, and that adds a very interesting versatile unit. They can form something called a horse archer column, where they go like this in a vertical column, and they can move around, snake around the battlefield, and they can only shoot to their left side to kind of reflect the historical Japanese archery. But they can move around the battlefield. They are harder to hit, and they don't suffer -1 to their shooting as a unit normally would for being in a non-standard formation. So the horse archers bring a very interesting addition to the dragon army. But you have to pay him for him in order to get it, and he's not cheap. He's 332 points to start with. So you're talking about now a 500-point unit. So you're putting some real investment in that if you do decide to go that route. So getting back to the other details of building the army, if you're going to go a duelist route, you want to consider a duelist weapon, some kind of special weapon for extra damage. You could also give any of the swords to any of your hard hitters. Togashi Yokuni, he could benefit from hitting a little bit harder. So you might look at how you might tool up some of those folks with special items. When it comes to your card deck, you're going to want, again, because there's such a jack-of-all-trades army, it really depends on your build, but they're not the best in morale, so you're going to want Grim Determination 3 times for sure. Most of your units are not going to have charge, so charge would be great to have in there, no doubt. Because I tend to use a decent amount of shooting with them, I like to include all or nothing. For those times where your bowmen are, probably going to get charged on the next turn, you want to get the most out of them. Doesn't matter too much that they're going to be spent. You can put the all or nothing card in there. You can reproduce the effects of the mountaineers or the scouts by having know the terrain, so that you don't actually have to take those units. You can use it on other units that you like. So really, it does depend, though. If you're going to be going for dueling, you're going to want Ieijutsu duel cards. You're going to want focus. Pretty much always want the focus card. I think, again, in any build, because it's worth a focus value of 5. And if somebody duels you, it's a nasty surprise for them that you drop the focus card and get 3 additional dice for your duel. So I think that about does it for the Dragon Army. Again, they are the jack of all trades, but master of none. They're good at fighting, good at close combat. They're good at ranged. They're good at magic. They have a few special units that no one else has. And again, playing into their theme, it's a Swiss Army knife unit that you can customize to your desire with the different tattoos that are available. Those are the monks I'm talking about. So they're a lot of fun to play, and I've done pretty well with them. I think back in the day, they weren't that popular. If you're looking to be even more hipster than your average modern L5R clan war player, Dragon might be a good choice for you. So I hope you have a good time advancing the mysterious agenda of the Dragon Clan on the battlefield, and we'll see you next time here at the Ludomancer's Vault.